Carl Sagan's famous quote. So I've talked about it a bit on this channel before, but I haven't yet actually made a video on a specific bit that I feel people might find interesting. And it is about the example he would provide when demonstrating the functionality, I guess, of the quote. And it's the famous pet dragon idea slash thought experiment. And what I'd like to bring forward today is sort of my experience using that example, or rather, not actually using that example when I'd be in real life conversations, talking to people about it, trying to either demonstrate the point or just generally discussing that thing. See, in my experience, it would often happen that when I would want to demonstrate the function of the quote with an actual example, I would sort of modify the pet dragon idea. And for those who aren't familiar, the pet dragon thought experiment is essentially what Carl Sagan would use to showcase when it's reasonable to require extraordinary evidence in a proposition to hold a belief in it. And in my experience, I have a preferred version, and it's a pet tiger. And this really gets into the whole idea of what skepticism is, at least in the modern sense. Again, in my experience, people often misunderstand what that actually is. So this whole idea with my modified pet tiger thing also helps demonstrate that, because people who aren't aware of what modern skepticism really is sort of criticize it, where why would you just choose to disbelieve whatever, and it's not about that. So let's continue. If a person tells you that they've gotten a new pet dog or cat or hamster, it isn't really necessary to put the evidential warrant sky high and demand evidence for you to be reasonable, because we know that people get pets often, and we know that cats, dogs, hamsters, etc. are typical normal pets that people have. So if it's a person that you don't know, but you overhear in a conversation, or you're in a group of friends and they mention that they've gotten a new pet dog, that it's not necessary for you to ask for evidence to be convinced. Like somebody just says that in passing, you don't question it, it's like totally normal. But so here comes the fun part. Carl Sagan would usually use the example of, what if a person says that they have a pet dragon? That illustrates the point great, obviously. But I found that if you substitute tiger for dragon, the analogy kind of works better, in my opinion. Because if you put tiger in there, you're not immediately, in a thought experiment, dismissing this example as some total fabrication. Because most people don't have tigers as pets. It's highly unlikely, but it is possible. Unlike a pet dragon, which to most people thinking about this thought experiment immediately goes, oh, so they're talking about something totally fake. While it kind of draws attention away from the point of the quote being the proportionality between claim and evidence. And if you put tiger in there, it actually doesn't become a total impossibility like putting dragon in there. It's already a bit more subtle and interesting, in my opinion, because the analogy goes the same way. Somebody says that they've gotten a tiger pet, you would look for evidence. You'd be like, no way, man, show me footage, show me videos. It works the same way, but the only difference is the person could actually produce evidence, and they could actually be like a wildlife keeper. That's rare, but it is possible. So I really find that that's an interesting example that brings a bit more subtlety when talking to people about stuff, especially since when you're in a conversation and maybe even disagreeing with people, it's good to sort of try and stray away from extremities. If a person that you're debating or discussing something with holds a completely different viewpoint on a subject than you have, like people often want to jump to, like, even subconsciously maybe, to either disregard their opinions or sort of show how ridiculous those opinions are, and jump into extremities. But thinking about this thought process in this way, I feel sort of allows for a bit more subtlety when you're thinking about it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And I didn't come up with this idea and I wasn't thinking about like modifying this idea. It just came out naturally when I would discuss this with people, because somehow it felt like that analogy would benefit from a very unlikely claim, but yet a possible one. So yeah, if you have any thoughts, let me know down in the comments below and we can discuss it. But that's it for this video. Thanks for watching and take care, guys.